Well, hello everyone, and welcome to this last video of the Tarot Journey video series. And today I will be talking about the Suite of Swords, which is the last suite of the Minor Arcanas. So the Suite of Swords is, the element that is associated with that suite is air. So it's a suite that is mainly about the mind. And if we're looking at astrological signs, then we're going to be talking about Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius. So it's a suite that is a bit more tragic than all the other ones that we've seen together. It's basically a suite that follows everything relative to our thoughts. So it's, basically telling the story of what could happen if you let your thoughts take control, and what can achieve if you manage to think the best and achieve the best of yourself, but also what could happen if you do not manage to canalize your thoughts and unwrap yourself of your head. So let's start with the beginning with the Ace of Swords. So this card is really about, the beginning of a thought. It's, this step in a project where, there's a dream that comes, this thought, this new idea. And even if it's so at the beginning, it's this step where imagination really goes wild, okay? It's you start envisioning what could happen with this new idea, with this new project, with this new relationship. It's really there that you start building this kind of story in your head and this idea. So as you're really starting this new journey, but as exciting as this new idea can be, it can often become the source of many obstacles. And this is where the Two of Swords, comes to play. So the Two of Swords represents a choice that's to be made. So, when you want to start a new project, have all those ideas, but at some point you need to choose what way, what path you want to, explore a bit more. So this card usually represents a choice to be made between two different ideas, okay? And what can make that choice even more complicated is really all those stories and those possibilities that the mind can, have a bit of fun to create for yourselves, okay? And it even often that, those obstacles or those choices don't even exist for real. They are all creation of, the consultant's mind. But at some point, a decision needs to be made. And this is what this card represents, which leads us to the Three of Swords. So the Three of Swords represents what basically happens when the choices that were made in the energy of the Two of Swords were not the good ones, or when they lead to, less than ideal situations. Okay, this card is by definition the representation of the broken heart card. Okay, it's where your mind cannot foresee a happy ending. Okay, and again, it's part of the tragedy of the, the Suit of Swords, because in a lot of times, the stories that the consultant is going to create in its head are what are going to really be the obstacles, okay? In the majority of times, the obstacles are not really real. They're all stories that the imagination has created, okay? And it's really also those stories that can, prevent the consultant to really see that possibility, that possible happy ending. And, it's also really important to remember that broken hearts can be mended, and it's possible to come to love and trust again. Okay, this card doesn't necessarily symbolizes the end. It just symbolizes a new set of possibilities that can be more advantageous for the consultant, which leads us to the Four of Swords. So the Four of Swords really represents this period of getting back from society, getting back in our head after the unpleasant situations of the Three of Swords. It's really a period of introspection where the consultant is called to really regroup his or her thoughts and, elaborate a new plan of action. Okay? It's basically a representation of the mental, not a mental setback, but it's like a mental retreat, okay? Where, you just take time for yourself, you take time to ponder what's next, what are the possibilities that you have. And it's really an occasion to heal and to examine whatever is presenting itself to us. So, nothing is in a hurry. This is really a moment of contemplation where the consultant is invited to take time for himself or herself and just ask himself or herself, what's next? Where am I going next? Okay, which leads us to the Five of Swords. So the Five of Swords is really a card that represents mental confusion that can, follow the setback and the introspection period of the Four of Swords. Because what happens when you spend too much time in introspection and asking yourself questions? Well, you get even more into your minds and you get scared of acting, so you start creating those stories again. So it's really the interior conflict, but also it can be exterior, okay? Because when the wounds are still fresh, it can happen that our reactions to certain situations are not as appropriate as they could be, okay? So it is also a warning in itself, okay? After the reflection of the Four of Swords, it's really time to take it slow and not try to win back all the time that we believe we lost, okay? So yes, it's about interior mental conflicts, but it's also a reminder that sometimes when you try to go back and fix everything as soon as possible, it's really a short-term victory. So it's really a reminder that when you go back into new plan of actions, it's important to focus on the long-term, the long-term effects and the long-term decisions, which really leads us to the Six of Swords. So the Six of Swords is really representing, letting go. Okay, after the conflict period, the reflection, it's time to really let go of the past and let go of those troubled thoughts and, the wounds of the past to really turn yourself towards calmer waters. Okay, it's like this card that is calling the consultant to go forward and, leave behind all the wounds, all the sadness, and leave those in the past. Because if you try to go forward while carrying baggages from the past, you're gonna take one step up front and two steps behind. So, it's really time for the consultant to let go of, whatever happened and focus on a happier future. Okay. So, it also a reminder that sometimes you need to use a bit of logic to reorganize your thoughts and really be ready to face the future and be ready for new happiness. Which leads us to the Seven of Swords. So the Seven of Swords kind of represents doubts, okay? It's this period of doubts that, comes with every new beginning. So if the Six of Swords invites the consultant to let go, the Seven of Swords really represents the doubts that a consultant is going to have to face if he or she really wants to move forward to a new future. And, it's normal. We're humans. It can be hard sometimes to really forget whatever happens and what happened in the past. And it's normal to be fearful, to be hurt again in the future. But this card really comes as a warning, okay? It's okay to have doubts, but it's not okay to be stuck in those doubts and start doubting and projecting all of our fears on other people. Okay? The consultant really must not let the doubts, have the better of him or her, because otherwise it's really self-sabotage. You want to go forward, but then you doubt everything. This is purely self-sabotage, okay? Doubt can be a really powerful weapon. It can protect us, but also it can turn back against us if we overuse it. Which leads us to the Eight of Swords. So the Eight of Swords is basically the logical suite of the Seven of Swords if the consultant cannot manage to let go of all the doubts, because now they're trapped in their minds. It's basically a vicious circles where, you have thoughts, then they create stories, then those stories create other stories and other thoughts, and then you just keep thinking and overthinking, and it's a never-ending circle. And this is what the Eight of Swords represents, this kind of like mental prison. Okay? And the saddest part, it's not even a real prison. It's a prison that has been built piece by piece by the consultant himself. So, yes, it might be important to planify in advance and analyze different opportunities and different scenarios. But when this is pushed to the extreme, this is where you fall into the Eight of Swords energy. It's like an infinite, flow of thoughts that is really making yourself a prisoner of your own mind. Which leads us to the Nine of Swords. So this is the situation that the consultant is going to fall into if they cannot get rid of the overthinking that was brought by the Eight of Swords. Okay, this is the anxiety card. Okay, it's about stress, it's about anxiety, it's about staying up at night because you're so stressed that you cannot sleep. It's basically all those anxious moment where the consultant just cannot get out of its own head. And it's really, really heavy energy that, is not going to bring any happy endings anytime soon if you cannot get out of it. Okay? And it again comes back to the mental stories that we create ourselves. I mean, if sometimes those thoughts and story are based from real facts, all the other maybe 10% is based on real fact, but the whole 90 other percent, this is the Nine of Swords. It's all those stories, those stress, those anxieties that are created by our own minds, which finally leads us to the Ten of Swords. Okay, the Ten of Swords is basically the final step of this tragic suite where it's the end of a cycle, whether it's a mental one or a real one. Okay, it's the moment where the consultant is just done, they're drained, and whatever situation they're in needs to end, because otherwise it will be impossible to go forward. So this card is really calling the consultant to get out of the cycle that was brought by the Nine of Swords, and get out of it, get out of this unhealthy cycle. Okay, this represents mental and physical exhaustion, where you're so exhausted that you need to end whatever is going on. But this cannot be all negative, because sometimes when a cycle comes to an end, it's like an opportunity to start again. Okay, and it's really up to the consultant to make sure that this new start is going to be happier than the previous one. Okay, which leads us now to the figures of the Suit of Swords. Okay, first we have the Page of Swords, which is basically a really enthusiastic energy or individual, a really creative energy too. Okay, it's, if at first gaze, this person can seem a bit nervous, because they have so much ideas, so much inspiration. In fact, it's just a person that has an imagination that is running so wild that they just cannot wait to start something new. Okay, the Page of Swords is someone that just wants to communicate with others his ideas and get into a new project. Okay, he just wants to build a community where he's going to be able to get into this exciting new adventure. Okay, if he's not necessarily someone that is going to lead, he's definitely someone whose creative and communicative skills are a definite must. Which leads us to the Knight of Swords. So the Knight of Swords is really an action individual or energy. Okay, that person wants to get stuff done. He wants the project to get done, okay? If the page has this creative energy, the knight is the one that is going to establish the foundation of, those ideas. It's someone that is really determined and, sometimes can be a bit immature and impatient because, yes, he wants to get out there, but this immature energy wants everything to get done now. If it doesn't happen now, then he can get discouraged and kind of give up on the thought. So it's someone that is not always reliable because he's going to lose motivation if he doesn't see instant results. Okay? He doesn't have the maturity yet to see the consequences of his actions, and he doesn't have the ability to see long term. So he always sees short terms. Okay, if at the start nothing can stop him, as soon as he doesn't see instant result, he can get discouraged. Which now leads us to the Queen of Swords. So the Queen of Swords is a person or an energy that is really confident, it's really sure. Okay, the Queen has a really distinct opinion on everything, basically. Okay, it's an individual that is really objective and has a great intellect. Okay, she's always out for more knowledge, and it's what makes her so powerful because she has accumulated so much knowledge that she's a really good resource person. But since it's someone that is ruled by the mind and by the logic, she can seem a bit cold sometimes or without compassion, which is totally wrong. It's just someone that, wants the best for everyone, but doesn't necessarily has the emotional capacity to show it. Someone that is really smart, really reliable, that wants the best for everyone, that wants to encourage people to think for themselves and achieve their own result. But it can be someone that in this world, she can be really direct and seem a bit standoffish or cold at first. Which finally leads us to the King of Swords. So the King of Swords is a practical and logical individual or energy. Okay, if because of his super strong logic, he can seem a bit cold and distant at first, he is someone that is really reliable. Okay, if you have a project, an idea that you want to, put out there, this is the person to come to, because yes, he's really a bit distant because he prioritizes logic and practical things, but he has also a lot of knowledge and knows how to put something out there. Never is he gonna take a decision based on his emotions. Okay, everything is based on logic and the knowledge that he accumulated towards the year. It's someone that is really intelligent and is gonna analyze every situation before taking a decision. That again is gonna be the most logic. Okay, he's really someone that maintains high standards and he's expecting the same from people around him. So this is an energy that is really intelligent, really reliable, but if you're expecting some emotional support, might not be the best person to go to. So this is what ends this video on the Suit of Swords, and it's also what ends the Tarot Journey video series. So I hope you guys really enjoyed it, and stay tuned for even more video. You can also subscribe to my Instagram account for even more content. I love you guys, and take care.